Good Morning Apocalypse, As the World Caves In, by Ken Johnson. Mother said, "We can take very little with us." It was far from an uncommon phrase to hear among the bickering children of the caravan. Often, when preparing to leave camp, you would see a wide spread of attitudes about the always moving home. Connor, the oldest child of the Bloom family, had more or less assimilated to the routine. They had only so much space on their segment of the caravan and had to fit 4 people where normally 3 was common. His younger sister, Crystal, on the other hand, was as curious as she was sentimental. Everywhere they would go, she consistently dragged one bizarre bauble or curiosity back to the caravan, only to be told often that what she found was dead weight at best and highly dangerous at worst. While both had their own ways of coping with this new world landscape, one thing was for sure. The dawn of the new millennium was as dangerous as it was cloaked in mystery. For many, January 1st, 2000, was the day the Earth as they knew it went silent. Exactly 1 year later, something else awoke in its place. That did little to slow down either of them. But Lila, their mother, often worried how much this new dystopia affected them. It is now October of 2010, 9 years since the Great Reset. So by now, it is believed that those who managed to hold on had settled in their ways. Some people, like the Blooms, found refuge in family, both found and fraternal alike. This refuge came in the form of the caravan. Constructed of reinforced large vehicles and technology stolen from the metallics they fled from, the caravan was a living convoy, taking the form of a train on wheels that could go anywhere. Meanwhile, there are a multitude of procedures and technological marvels that made the caravan work. All that most cared to know about it is that it was home. Lila was a teacher in life before, and became something of a knowledge baron or den mother to the remaining children. Many children were not as lucky when it came to parents, but she did her best to love and care for every one of those kids like they were her own. However, deep down, she knew that Connor and Crystal would always hold her deepest love. They also carried her deepest worry. Lila watches the sunset over the Great Lakes with her husband, David. Her mind wanders and darts from place to place, focusing on watching how fast her children were growing up before her eyes. "I don't worry so much about Connor," she explains to David, hoping to add his more emotional input to her rational calculation. At least, not yet. He's 20 now, and I'm constantly impressed by this maturity and character. Lila paused for a moment. An average person would likely assume that she was catching her breath or finding her next thought, but David sees this immediately as a nervous hesitation. He gently grabs her arm, feeling her fingers twitch and tap underneath his light grip. As she takes a deep breath, the warmth of David's hand brings calm to hers. David knows to offer his hands to hers, but is sure to let her move and adjust as needed. Her stims and occasional restless movements are not a panic twitch to be stopped, but just part of her unique way of processing. Lila often felt like a neurological misfit amongst her peers, and the eccentricities she had were seen by her parents and peers as oddities rather than anything involving a diagnosis or a spectrum. Yet, she wore her academic valor and fluency in 5 languages like badges of military honor. David only has 1 secondary language, Lila, and that was good enough for him. Gathering her thoughts, Lila turned her attention to Connor, looking out to the caravan as he helps several of the adults adjust the solar panels on top of the trucks. He's already 20. I knew I'd always feel like he was growing up too fast, but he's basically had to be an adult for 4 or 5 years now. She watches on as with little struggle, Connor lifts a rather heavy-looking solar panel over his head to a man on a ladder. Connor stands about a solid shoulder and head above almost anyone in the caravan. Awkwardly growing into his own, he stands taller than any in the caravan at 6'8". His pitch-black hair falls down his shoulders, often pulled back when he's working, as his hair would often fall awkwardly in his face. Being blessed with long reach, incredible strength, and fast legs, he always dreamed of being a running back. His dream was to be a turning point player to take the Detroit Lions to glory. Sadly, life had other plans. Lila then turns to Crystal, skipping stones into the water, occasionally pocketing the holy rocks, as she would call them. They were her favorite. Crystal was the spitting image of her mother. She has auburn hair with beautiful curls that she and her mother would style together every morning. Her skin was a bit less pale than her mother, but still kept her speckling of freckles and rosy cheeks. Even 30 years apart, the resemblance was clear to anyone who saw them. Lila would sometimes joke that Crystal's mesmerizing smile and Connor's gentle giant stature were the only things Vernon ever gave them. David smirks as he spots Crystal's rock thievery in action. Lila moves to stand up, but David moves his hand in front of her. I'll keep an eye on it. And besides, if I had to pick between Potosky's stones, broken circuit boards, or heaven forbid, VHS tapes, I'll take the holy rocks. Lila lets out an exasperated sigh. I just wish she would find some tapes we could actually let her watch. I mean, it's such a blessing to find a working movie out in the wastes and share it with everyone. But I have to be the bad guy when I have to tell her and all of the little ones that Silence of the Lambs isn't a cute animated romp about sheep that can't say bah. Lila's frustration quickly turns to laughter, as if she's just now processing the recurring disaster they would call the movie night problem. Without pause, Lila's brain jumps to another thought, speaking as soon as it crosses the wires of her brain. Do you think Connor remembers? David pondered a moment, hoping to predict where the distracted train of thought had taken her. Even for someone as fluent as he was, it was hard at times to understand the game of mental telephone that would connect one conversation to the next. It became a playful game for them at times, although often it would lead them both to laughing, as even her detailed explanation of her cerebral journey would leave him stranded on the side of the proverbial road. David took a few mental guesses. Before the caravan? David was not confident in this guess. They'd only been traveling with the caravan for about 2.5 years, to his best estimation. He found himself quickly racking his mind for a better answer. He would never quite think as fast as he could, but he wore his silver medal with pride. Before Mr. Blue Sky? He quickly threw the answer out. He wasn't even sure if Connor knew about him. That phenomenon was not really a factor here, but even as far ahead as the mitten, that was likely to change. Before we met? Admittedly, Crystal and Connor's birth father was not a common topic of conversation. Last he heard her bring up him was on a drunken night a year ago. Well, I say if those mechanical motherfuckers want to take us out, the least that they could do is take the rat bastard first. At least I can say the metallics never put a hand on me. He figured she wouldn't have interest to randomly talk about Vernon. For certain, not when she was calm or sober. Sensing he's running out of time, he simply says his first impulse, knowing he still likely got it wrong. Lila soothes his confusion. Before the reset. Lila could easily see how quickly this answer clicked in David's head as she gently squeezes his hand back, seeing a bit of embarrassment cross his face. I mean, one day he's trading Japanese monster cards and begging to go to ride roller coasters, and now he thinks he's some revolutionary in training like Neo in the Matrix. David sarcastically frowns at her, pretending that Lila had struck a nerve. She chuckles in recognition. I'm sorry. I've been sorry for 10 years, but maybe you should have watched it in theaters like I did. This entire argument, if you could even call it that, was practically a scripted comedy sketch at this point. Lila knew that David was going to surprise her on her birthday with a DVD player and a copy of her 4 favorite movies. The first 2, The Matrix and The Mask, she often remarks upon, or would quote in conversation when she's confronted the difference between language skills and people skills. The 3rd and 4th were technically in a tie, both between the Terminator movies, but she often avoided quoting those in public. The tech apocalypse parallels were known to make people uncomfortable. David could even see in her eyes she really wanted to say John Connor instead of Neo, but hesitated. Even The Matrix left some on edge, but it had the terrible luck of coming out the year before the world had its new dark age. David quickly pulls his hand away as Lila's whole body twitches. Lila could be sensitive to touch at times, and he was quick to steer on the side of caution. He spots tears beginning to fall down Lila's face. Lila sees the panic forming in his eyes and gently grabs his hand, leading it slowly to her stomach. David joins in her tears of joy as they both feel their unborn child kick for the first time. I don't think a man ever stops worrying if he's going to be a good father or husband, or a good man for that matter, but with a woman like you, I worry a little less. Lila dries the tears from her face as she reaches her hand out to David to help her stand. And who knows, Lila jokes. The way they're timing out, my birthday might end up a little bit more special. Lila's birthday was January 8th. Considered by many to be a lucky birthday, shared with legends like Elvis Presley, David Bowie, and Stephen Hawking. It was also their wedding anniversary. David was going to get a DVD player and a copy of The Matrix up for her 30th. It was, in his case, 8 days too late.